Hello. Hello. How's it going? How is the upload stream today, folks? Let's have a look. Fast.com. It's looking good. We're up to 67 megabits per second, but it's the upload speed that matters. Da, da, da. More information. Upload speed 0. Oh no. Yikes. Okay, I think we're good. I think today might work. But I'm going to wait for confirmation from everyone in the chat first. Yeah, so before I go any further, can everyone hear me? Can everyone see me? Is this good? We cool? 0 is not a good number. You're right. Camera focus is a bit dodgy. Yeah, it is. You're right. I think that might fix it. Cool. Hello everyone. Not at all framey. Good. Oh, it's very kind of you all to come back. I'm really sorry about yesterday. I have no idea what happened. Our internet just decided not to play ball. And we can do it. So I figured it was best to, well, Tom figured it was best to just kill it and start again. And hopefully we get a decent stream today. Yeah, touch wood. It's so nice of everyone to be here. How many people do we have? Like, a bunch. Hey, Andy. 2 Andys. Andy Boy and Andy Mation. Andy Mation, you had something you asked me in a Discord, and I've forgotten what it was. Anyway, let's get on with some stuff. Today, I figured what we would do is just look at some unfinished ideas that I've got like languishing in my creations, and we would apply some sound designer big brain to them. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know like what you're going to learn, if anything, but we'll just have a muck around and see if any of the stuff is useful. If you do have any questions, if you do have anything you want to know about dreams or sound in dreams or even music, just fire us up in the chat and we'll see what we can do. Let's have a look. What shall we do today? Yeah, so the reason I was going to look at some sort of unfinished game ideas was because being a sound designer is... when you do that in the sort of video games industry, you come into as a sound design person, you probably never actually like made a game or made an interactive experience yourself, other than just made cool sounds for someone else. In dreams, that's a little harder to do. It's very hard to be someone who just makes cool sound effects at the moment. We're gonna make it easier for you to make cool sound content and original sound content down the line in the future. But right now, what we do as sound design is very much linked to the games that we create and the experiences that we design. So what we're going to do is look at some sort of half-finished game ideas and like delve deep into the logic of them and sort of see what makes them tick and how you can apply sound in dreams to make them sort of better, make them sing. So the first thing I've opened is this unfinished game. I'm not trying to pimp my wares here at all. This is just, I needed something to work on. If you have something you want to send me that we can look at together, then by all means, let's do that at some point. But for now, here is a game. It's a game. And in this game, you are a cat. So that one helps. And all you do is you actually this cursor. You're not the cat. The cat sort of moves automatically. And the idea is that you're sort of building the world for the cat to walk on. And if you don't do that, then unfortunately the cat dies. That's the idea of the game, and you can see why I never got very far with it, because it's actually a bit rubbish. You can sort of like you're just spawning platforms endlessly for this cat to sort of go on an adventure. But it is very much unfinished, and I've broken like the first rule or first bit of advice I give to people when talking about sound in dreams is that I just left it totally silent in the background, and that's rubbish. when you make something, I always encourage you to put something down like an ambience, so that you're not dealing with like a digital digital silence. Essentially, you want your, obviously the creator here has put some effort into there being a sort of color palette. So like the first thing you want to do is also apply sort of an audio palette. Yeah, Streams Workshop, I'll go to you one day. Boop, boop, boop. So, where do you start when making an ambience? Well, I'm going to show you what we do here in Media Molecule when we're working on a level. Floating somewhere in the level will be an audio main microchip. Bum, bum, bum. Pink. And inside audio main, you'll have a bunch of stuff like your master mixer. That's just got all your volume levels. But in here as well, I'm going to put my ambience. So the ambience is sort of a work group, essentially. So we'll put it inside its own little microchip. And green for ambience or something. Right, so this is not going to set your world on fire, because I know like many of the experienced streamers in the chat do this all the time. So I'm just going to go through the sort of things that you already do, and you're going to watch me do it. Yay! Sound effects, look for ambiences, nature. So the reason I'm wanting to focus on this is because I hear this sound a lot. Like, literally this sound. That's fine, like, good on you for putting an ambience in, top marks. But, like, be more unique. We can take that and tailor it, or take any of these sounds and make it into something that's your own, because these are just starting points. They're just like things from your palette. Some of these, and the first thing I'm going to do with all of these actually is give a nice fade in, because you don't want to start the level and be bam ambience. You want a nice fade in, and then when the level ends, you'll get that fade out. Tom says, can I turn my voice up a little? I can, but I need to go under the desk. One sec. Voice. Hello. Mic is now turned up. How's this? Is that better? Cool. Sorry about that. I've got one eye on you, but not much. I'll actually bring this closer as well. I hope you could hear all that. I'm not going to start again. Haha. Oh man, the clipping. Oh, you're away. Okay. Now we've got Jungle Night. But that's again, it's just the basic sample. Let's do some stuff with it. Cat, you can stop moving. Just turn off the game. So these are stereo files, but you might want to build up a soundscape from multiple sounds and pan them around. So let's reduce the width of that particular sound so you can see it's going to my left. And let's get another one. This is really basic stuff, people, but we're going to make it good, I promise. You'll have noticed when you play with the reverb slider that it sort of gets stuck at 50, and then it will let you go up to 100. What that's doing is, think about it like this. Your sound and the reverberated sound are almost two different things. When you have your sound set to 0 reverb, you're not hearing the reverberated sound at all. When you get it set to 50%, you're hearing an equal mix of the completely reverberated sound and the dry sound. If you take it all the way to 100%, what we've done is we've removed the original sound, and you're only listening to the completely reverberated sound. So you're listening just to the reverb unit. So by doing that, we've removed the dry element entirely, and it sounds like super distant and washed out. I'm going to just shift them around in pitch as well, because I think that's... I want it to look a bit alien. Weird. Very weird. And when I'm designing ambiences, what I'm doing a lot of the time is like taking everything down to 0 and bringing them up to a point where I feel like that's not intruding on... let's get a fade out. It's not intruding on like the mix, it's there in the background. I don't think we need it entirely reverberated. Okay, now I want some more presence because those sound very far away. Back in sound mode. Ooh. Yeah, I like that because that's got like a sort of dusty, very loud, but again, fade in, fade out, take it down. That's cool. That just gives it some sort of like dry noise that makes the scene feel a little closer. To me anyway, I don't know. If you bring those if you really boost those top frequencies there, and only those, then that sounds a little bit more like there's just dust blowing around. Okay, so I want to do a bit more of that because that is sort of like, you know, one layer of close sort of dust and dirt. I just panned it and I didn't move it. I'll do the same with some like a bit more wind. And I get this from weather. Ooh. I do apologise about the previews in Ambience, particularly because they are very loud, and some of these sounds aren't designed to be very loud. So you hear them, and it's like, and that's not what the sound is. You have to grab it and then listen to the volume in game. So here's now some more wind. You notice that a lot of these samples, add a random start point here. A lot of these samples are quite constant. So what I'm going to do is add some way of adding variation. Hey Lisa, how you doing? So let's take a signal generator, which is our sort of modulating signal, and put that into the power of the hillside wind. Okay, it sounds like waves because it's oh, I am clipping a bit. Down a couple of dB in a game up a total. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, it's very hard to hear what you guys are hearing, so I'm going to turn the PlayStation up a bit. And me down a little. You know, I'm only clipping because Tom, you told me to be louder, so I'm just shifting the blame entirely to you there, Mr. Dent. How's this? I'm trying to talk. Okay. Right, so I've now got a wavy effect on my hillside wind, but it's way too fast, so I'm going to move that sweep up to about 3 seconds or so. And I want to like vary this so that it's not just a sine wave, because that is dull. So let's make it kind of randomly choose the sort of min value and the max value. Doop, boop, boop. So what we've now got is a sine wave still that is going... It's going to pick a point to go down to and up to. It's unlikely to go to the top. Sorry, reading chat. And now that that's doing that, I think we can give this more. And there was a question, I think it actually might have been Andy B's question about audio envelope. And this is when you start like enjoying sound design in Dreams. It's like not just plonking things together, but like you sort of chain things together. So as we've chained our signal generator to our sound, we can now change our sound to something else. So for the wind, for example, we could chain that to the movement of a tree. Let's see what's happening. So the question about audio envelope was, what is it? What's it doing? Why does an affected sound audio envelope, why does that not reflect, why does the audio envelope not reflect effects? Because it doesn't. There's a long story behind the development of that particular feature. And we used to have it in, I think, Bubbles. Sorry, was the last iteration of Dreams. And we loved it so much that we had to bring it over into Unicorn, which is what you see here. But the whole audio engine had to get rewritten, and it was like such a godsend that it was. Like, we have so many cool features based on this iteration of the audio engine. But one of the big changes that happened was that audio rate was separated from game rate. And this led to a bunch of like features and such like. And one of them was that we could not monitor the affected sound of a sound effect or instrument fast enough to make this useful. So the envelope is only the unaffected sound, and it's also I think pitch also incorporates this. It is included there. So if you change the pitch, I'm not sure that the audio envelope will be reflected. Maybe it will. Anyway, let's find out what happens. That's enough of nonsense. What I'm going to do is put in a number. It almost sounds like I don't know what I'm talking about, doesn't it? Here's a number. And you can see that the envelope of this is, not going very high. It's going up to like 20. So for this envelope to be a useful signal, I actually need to remap it. And I'm going to do that with the signal manipulator. There you go. You can see the volume of that sound is being represented by that little graph. It's not so useful when we're dealing with largely 0 to 1 signals at the moment, if our signal only goes to 0 to 1. So whenever you're using the envelope, and I hope this is sort of what you were asking, Andy, and allows you to do what you need to do, you need to use a manipulator to boost the signal. So by boosting it, what I'm going to do is drop down the input thresholds. So you can see that squashed little graph there is actually becoming a full range graph. There we go. Just sort of guessed at it being around like a factor of 5. Cool. And I can also add some smoothing so that that jerky line becomes a smoother line. I can also clamp the values so that... Uh-oh, have I been buffering? No, no buffering, please. Abby, get off the internet. Quick audio. Okay, so now we have a smooth, clamped value that is coming from the envelope of this. Let's, I don't know, do something with it. Let's take a tree, for example. Boop. Keyframe. And let's tunnel into the tree and make these things move. I think they're leaves. Rubbish tree that I've made here. Boop. Everything intersects. Okay. That's some movement. So now if I just do that. Wind moves tree. Kinda. I can also use a bit of springiness on this keyframe. It should smooth it out a little bit. And I can use the same keyframe, actually another one. Different keyframe to move the whole tree this time. Whoosh. That was kind of out of the way. So now that keyframe is there. Now this time I'm going to use the same signal. I'm going to use a different manipulator so that I have a bit more control over the values. Let's see what happens. Yikes. This way I can have the tree move a little less, or maybe have a little bit more sort of like smoothing. I don't know, kind of cool. I guess, and now you can sort of clone that around and you've got like other trees doing their thing. There are ways that you could add a bit more randomization per tree if you wanted to do that. But anyway, that's sort of an ambience with a little bit of spice to it. I'm not happy with this ambience though. It's really sort of like vanilla. So let's grab an instrument. Do you remember during one of the streams, like we were making some music on a couch with Tom, and like I was saying, when you're making music, be sure to check out sound effects because you'll find some cool things that you can use as an instrument. Well, when you're making a sound effect, also check out instruments because there might be something tonally that gives your instrument, your ambience or your sound effect a little bit more zazz than straight out the box. Yes, I just said zazz. And I go to this place. Oh, yeah, this one. Okay, guitar feedback. How is that going to work with anything that's in this weird purple scene? Let's just record a note and see what happens. Ow! Right. I'm going to pitch that all the way down. Add some randomization to that pitch. And also like, loop the clip so that we don't just get one of them, we get a bunch. Oof, I'm not sure. This is a bit too spooky for me. But you get where I'm going with it, hopefully. If I turn this into a proper instrument with this one. You should have now taken it from a sampler instrument to something that's got notes. Although I'm not sure what any of these notes will actually do. How's this going to... Whoa! No, you know, I don't like it. It's not working out for me. We'll find something in here though. Maybe reverse ice pianos. Ollie says granular wind chime. What a good idea. Yeah. I really appreciate having my audio design family in the chat, like backing me up when I make ridiculous mistakes. Thank you guys. Oops. And let's do some granular randomization. Like the grain reverse is always a fun one to make stuff sound weird. This cat's like, what the hell? This was like a nice pink happy place. Anyway, yeah, the point of this is just to like, please add like a bunch of sounds when making your ambience. Be sure to like, not like 100% them, like ambience sounds are designed to be like building up like the very sort of foundations of your soundscape. I've done this probably a bit too loud. See how quietly you can get your ambience to sort of be, and don't be afraid to sort of play with logic to make it a bit more interactive. Anyway, that's probably it for this game, because now I've fixed the thing that the one thing that was wrong with it, and there's plenty more wrong with it. Let's see if anything comes to mind. Gimme. Well, at least you're not silent now, Mr. Cat. I mean, you definitely need some happier music. You also probably need a sound for when you're falling, because that was rubbish. Where is Mr. Character? We are going on a journey today. When I am thinking of like features to design, I always just slap down a brand new microchip. You might be getting at some of these inputs and logic that already exists, but it really does help to ring fence your sound in a chip. And I've got another example that might show why that's important in a sec. But for now, I'm going to see if I can get this character to have like a whooshing sound as it falls down to its spiky death. Let's get that wind again. Everything's wind today. Sure. Just needs to be... Oh, here's a tip. If you ever find like a sound is too quiet, go into this mode, slice flapper mode, slice flapper, slice mapper view, and then you can boost things. So a quiet recording of some dusty wind becomes harsh swishing. Gives you some extra volume to play with. Yes, Bella, the slice flapper. Okay. Not sure that's the right sound, but we'll go with it now. We can always change it. This is going to be like as he falls down or she falls down, it's going to shh. So how do we get at that information? A Puppet interface is a good place to start. And here we've got a bunch of inputs and outputs that govern the movement of the character and tell you about what it's doing. Walking strength, movement strength, on ground, that's a useful one, that might be useful. Page 2, I think you've got the ones where you can have jump, peak and descent. So that's probably useful. Will you logic fiends will do this, I'm sure, is putting nodes down just so that you've got something to tap into. Because, you know, if I don't do that, if I just do like jump peak and then I'm like, oh no, I didn't mean that, then like all my wires are gone, and like that can be a real pain when you're doing the other stuff. So put down a node and you can sort of do this. Jump peak, actually we want jump descent. I know what's going to happen. Let's just play it. Have got a debug that I can make the cat run. Off he goes. It worked! It sounded rubbish, but it worked. Right, let's see what else we could use instead of that. You know what? Why the hell? We'll just record it. We want a comedy. Bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, bum, bum. Here is a mic. What am I doing? Bish bash bosh, job's a good one. Let's see how it works. It worked, it was just a bit quiet because I hated the sound. Probably needs to die. This is where like the ADSR comes in really handy. It's not just for like shaping like the sound of instruments and stuff, but like it really ties into all of your game-wide implementations. For example, we were talking about the ambience earlier. We want a nice slow fade in as the game starts and a slow fade out when you transition levels. Otherwise, your level transitions sound like they just cut. So by having this sort of thing on your ambiences, you get a nice crossfade between levels. On this account, we actually need to handle the fact that you fall and hit the ground very quickly, so we just go cut it off. And it might not want to start from exactly the same point each time. We could randomize by shift clicking there. Pop. Alright, this is rubbish, but let's give it a go. That's a mantra. I heard it. It still needs to be louder. I'm not sure. I think there must be something in here that is governing my volumes, perhaps. Okay. I think I've worn out this particular example. There's plenty more I could do with this game. For example, I'm not particularly happy with the footsteps. I think the cartoon needs like a bit more of like some squeaky footsteps, maybe something that is like less literal. But I'm bored of it now, so in Dreams fashion, I'm going to leave it and move on to something else. Right, I was looking at engines yesterday when I had terrible internet, and I figured that might be a useful thing to show. Do I have this? So I was looking at Rogue State and using it as an example of actually quite a simple vehicle. It only has like a couple of keyframes. So I'll just show you how the vehicle works. This is the, sorry, did I say Rogue State? I meant Thunderhead. This is the vehicle mechanic for Thunderhead. It is super simple, but kind of first thing I did with it once I had this approach was to try and figure out how to make the engine work. So let's look at how that works. This is interesting, by the way. Should I carry on with this one, or do you want to try a different one? We can roll the dice on a different example. I don't know. Let's go to the engine example. Engine. Yes. Here is a simplified version of exactly the same thing. I just remixed it. And I've removed the ship in this case. The ship is gone. We're now just left with the logic that was handling the engine. And I'm sorry, I'm actually talking about, I'm talking over a jet engine, which is possibly not the best thing to stream. If you can't hear me, I'll try and watch the chat. Right, so this red ball is actually just a representation of what the left stick on my controller is doing. And left, right. And there's no smoothing there whatsoever, it's just moving around. So that's the logic that does that. You know how to do this. You've got a left stick output and then you start splitting it with splitters. And then you can see as I move the left stick around, I'm getting different signals. So what was going on here? When you start something like this, it's always a good idea to think about what is the interactive element that you want to give the player. And what elements of the sound can help you feed back into what the gameplay is doing. Because, you know, sound for sound's sake is often fine, but like for the most part, you really want this to reflect what is happening in the game. And engines are a really tricky example of this because there's a million things that are sort of happening to an engine at any one time. You might be giving more gas, you might be getting more resistance from the road. This is a car, of course. You might be skidding. All these, there's so many different variables. And it's like, where do you even start? Like, do you search Dreamiverse for an engine, or do you want to try and build it yourself? You could do either. But in the case of like a vehicle, I always were thinking like, okay, so this is a jet, so it's going to have some thrust. Thrust is like constant. I know that's going to be there. But what is the player doing that is going to influence that? And simply in this game, it's just moving the stick around. In a more complicated game, there might be more variables, but I've tried to simplify this down to like, you know, there are 4 directions. I want it to sound different when the plane banks up. I want it to sound different when you're close to the floor, and I want it to sound different as you sort of strafe left and right. That's it. That's all I wanted to happen. So, how do you go about achieving that? I have a bunch of elements here that I'm switching off, so you can hear individual elements at a time. Oh, there's so much to talk about in this particular example. I'm just going to waffle over it. I'm really sorry about this. Maybe I was saying, like, when you've got like an idea that you want to be sort of self-contained, you want to put it in a microchip. All of these microchips here represent sort of a different sound design concept. For example, this one is just like, okay, this is when the ship is high. This one is just the sort of the main engine, and then this one down here is just like some interest when it goes left and right. Just those things that we talked about, you know, the player variables. And the reason they're in their own microchip is because I want to use effect fields to modify the looping sounds that are inside here. And effect fields will influence everything that exists in their current scope, and the scope is the microchip. So these effect fields are here, they can only touch this thing. So this gives me a nice way of just having a constant looping sound, which is affected by these. And these things come in from a smoothed stick input. So I can hear the thrust. I can hear the sound that I, you know, the modification that I want when I wanted to move it left and right. And I made, this is just an effect field with some tweaks made to it. So if I remove this wire, powering on the effect field, that's what moving the stick left and right is doing. It's just powering this. But it's also moving down is doing another one. So these effect fields stack, and they all influence the sound together. So let's just hear what that sounds like. Left and right. And down is muffled. Going up doesn't really do anything. Cool. Easy peasy so far. And this sort of like implementation is just built on layers, really. So once you've added like your first layer, it's just a case of like doing this again for all the different concepts that we talked about. So the next one is going to be the high altitude, and in the library found this sound, which is that sort of ripping sound of a distant plane, but it's also really nice for representing a sound, the jet when it's nice up high. So on its own, nothing, but as the stick goes higher, we use the effect field to modify that sound by boosting its volume. Try and do that with moving the camera. Let's just listen to that. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Hi. So you get the idea, right? We're just adding layers of interest that have this analog control. If I add everything back in, I mean, like I don't need to go over all of it. Like all I have done really is add a loop, and then I've added some keyframes, so not keyframes, effect fields that affect it in different circumstances. And it all stacks up, you know, you just get more and more layers to this sound. And that's really the sort of long and short of it. Maybe what I could do quickly is build like the simplest engine ever, like a really crap version, but just like super fast using the same techniques, and you can just watch how it all comes together. Okay, Dreams Workshop. I will go there one day, I promise. Right, here is a new engine. I've switched that one off. Got to have the right icon. Okay, so let's find, first element is going to be, I'm not going to make this a jet engine, it'll be something totally different. Vehicles, futuristic engines. Funny story, I wanted to call this folder Unreal Engines, but then legal came back and said you can't call it Unreal Engines. Don't be silly. Chicken Chaser. Oh, Micromobile. Yeah, cool. Let's make the Micromobile. Because it's a looping sound, you bung it in, it just loops. Okay, we're going to assume this car is traveling forward on its own and like moving. Actually, no. What should we do with it? Let's just wire some things up and see what happens. Effect field. And let's get that from my left and right, which is these two, I believe. left and right. I can just take it from there. Grab me a port. Any of these will do. X into that. And you can see that this is shining blue when I take it one way and yellow when I take it the other. And you'll notice that only the yellow way actually powers this gadget. That's because the stick being neutral is at 0. Moving it right, I'm giving it a +1, and moving it left, I'm giving it a -1. And a -1 actually doesn't mean power. It means no power. So I'm going to take a signal manipulator, every audio designer's best friend, and I can use this thing here to go flip values below minimum. And now it will be powered each way. Right, this is going to be the crappiest engine, and it's going to be amazing. So we're going to pitch it up as I turn the corner. Maybe some EQ as well. Just, I don't know, just the shape. Yeah! But that's way too quick, so we want some smoothing on this. Again, a signal manipulator really is the audio designer's best friend. Okay. I think what we need is to sound like the engine is actually under stress, and at the moment it just seems like it's going. So let's take the pitch off it. Then I'm left with just the EQ. When it is under stress, we'll take the up signal. Sorry, I'm probably boring everyone to sleep here. This is quite dry stuff, isn't it? Y positive. Trying to figure out which keyframe it will be. I think it's that one. Oh, got one of those already. That's the wrong one. That's down. Boop. Okay, so only when the stick goes up, this is going to be our effect for increasing the drive of the engine. Actually, I'm not really thinking too hard about what these EQs are doing. I'm just like making it do something. Again, way too fast, so this one needs the remapper too. And the cool thing about effect fields is that it's very easy to understand them as additive effects, as in like, oh, I'm adding volume or I'm boosting EQ. But what you might want to do a lot of the time is take your initial sound and like think of reducing some qualities, maybe reducing the sound or maybe filtering off some of it, so that the effect field can be the one that pushes it back in. Okay. So that's one element of this engine. I'm gonna do one more. I mean, you can add a ton more, right? Like, we have other sounds that we could probably layer in there, because again, fun is layering this stuff. And that's almost the same pitch. Cool. Yeah, so we've got a version of it which is like, I tried when making these loops that they all had this similar sort of pitch, so you can mix and match. Like, hear that? They have got that same underlying engine note. Okay, so our this one, that stick up, I'm going to use to drive an effect that makes that chugging sound come to life. Do, 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 do. I promise we'll do something interesting after this, maybe. Maybe, if you're good. So this time, this effect field is we're getting some EQ there. Maybe we want a bit of like 200 for just for Lisa. Maybe some distortion, so that the default state of this sound is being warped into this sort of. Can you hear that? But what we can notice is because this sound, the initial, is in its own microchip, the pitch isn't affecting it. So I also need +3 pitch to map it to the same thing. Cool. And we also have this one, the Micromobile first loop. Let's see if that works as well. It's there, but you know, I kind of want that to do something different. So it might be that we put this in its own group as well. Get another one of them. Boop, boop. You go in here, and accelerate also comes in. What should we do to this one? Ollie, Lisa, any suggestions for how we modify this? Maybe we could do some granular stuff. Maybe we... Oh, oscillator. Grain interval. Yeah, I think you're right. Okay, we need another effect field. Sound mode, effect field. Gimme. Bosh. This is going to take the acceleration. Remember, I need to give it +3 to keep it in pitch with everything else. But we're also going to start using the granular synthesis tab and changing the overlap a little bit so that we start to hear some... I don't know if this is going to work. I don't think we need the oscillator so much. Oh, maybe what this can do is we'll have the oscillator off, and this is also going to drive a little bit of the oscillator. So what I've got when I have remember that effect fields are additive. When I have the oscillator at -100, there is no oscillator in this sound mixed in at all. 0, you can hear the sound and oscillator. Here you can just hear the oscillator pitch. So our default wants to be no oscillator, and then we use the effect field to give some oscillator. Burp. Let's hear this. It'd be cool as well if the oscillator was lower pitch, so we get like the octave down. Ooh. Yeah. Is that how this works? Yes, it is, Tap Jars. I hope it is, because I will have been doing it wrong for several years. But it has been known. Okay, so I'm feeling this is sort of getting somewhere. However, like all of this is sounding too steppy. I need to add that smoothing back in. Which we had, I think, up here, did we? Yeah, there's the smoothing. I just forgot to add this to everything else. Add that. I can add this either here, or I could have taken it back from where the wire came from. Doesn't really matter. It's sometimes nice to give everything its own bit of smoothing if you're not really strapped for gadget thermometer. Is that actually doing any smoothing? Yeah, it's going up and then down over a second. Let's hear it now. Cool. There's a very simple engine, and I hope that gives you the idea of like how you might tackle something like that. So I know this was like supercharged and I flew through it, but all you're doing is taking loops and then you're powering effect fields, and that process is useful throughout sound design implementation in Dreams. It's a really powerful concept. especially when you start using these in combined with timelines and like it's a really cool tool for interactive music. If you've seen Bogdan do his Hargrave stuff, a lot of that is based on the principle of powering effect fields into certain conditions, and allowing the music to be modulated by all these cool effects that are sort of stacking up and playing with each other and sometimes fighting each other, and you get very random results. All right, there's the chicken chaser. Next, what would you like to see? Oh yeah, I had this. Actually, no, this is very similar to what I was doing before. I was going to get I've been watching Abby play a lot of Ghost of Tsushima, and the wind mechanic is awesome. But I kind of did that in the other one, so maybe we'll do something else. Like you can actually use strokes and their wind direction in a very similar way to what we were talking about before. Shall I see how quickly I can mock that up? Okay. I am so sweaty. It's quite hot in here. TMI. Back to our weather. A dusty wind. There is really little point in scaling up a sound that is two-dimensional, by the way. I'm just doing it so I can easily find it. Back to envelopes. There is more to sound design in envelopes, I promise. All right, I've put a keyframe down, and I'm going to use that to animate the wind strength of this painting, which is a little shrub. And also the frequency. The frequency is how varying it is, like that. Up. Okay, we have wind. I'm gonna again randomize that wind by giving it something to play from. The world's most boring wind. And again, we're going back to the signal manipulator, taking that in there. What a rubbish weak signal. Let's take that down. Remember, envelope, you're always going to probably always, you're going to want a signal manipulator to boost that signal. There's this almost useful signal. All right. I don't know how many years it took Sucker Punch to do that, but I just did it in 2 seconds. It's not as good. It's a really cool mechanic in that game. I don't know if you've played it, but if you're ever lost, you can use the wind to guide you, and it's really nice. All the plants will sort of blow in the same direction, and you'll see all the sort of dust motes and everything, and the sand go in that direction. It's really, really cool, and there's lots of little little touches like that in that game that make it really special. So going back to our signal generator, that's a really getting messages from Lisa about D&D tonight. Yes, it's fine if you're late, Lisa. I don't know if you're still watching. If you want to play D&D with us, just turn up when you can. Let's add some pauses to this wind. I told you it's going to be quick. I'm just going to do it really quickly. Max value. If you need any more information on how signal generators work, I think I would be right in saying Tap Giles has an excellent set of tutorials, and there's some in the Dreams tutorials as well. This needs some smoothing because you can see it a little bit jerky. So I'm getting at sound design and logic are intrinsically linked. If you have a recording that's not quite doing what you want it to do, maybe there's a solution in terms of powering it with a signal, and maybe there's something that sound can then influence in the world. Wind is quite a sort of basic example, but this is also really useful for stuff like screen shake. When an explosion happens, maybe you want that explosion to drive the screen shake exactly in sync with that explosion sound. That's a fun way of doing that sort of stuff. But you do always need the signal manipulator, and you do need to have a bit of smoothing on it. I think we can tweak that. You know, I would dial in stuff like the wind flap frequency. I think probably needs to be a bit. But anyway, yeah, then you can start, you know, cloning these around the world, and they all work like that thanks to the amazing genius of keyframes. All right, that's the end of that one. What else we got? Let's whiz through this lot. Oh, that was Abby shouting "cut" for the Pig Detective trailer. Top-down shooter template. Let's edit this. How long time have I got? Oh, I've almost run out of time. I suppose I can go over to 6. Tom, is that cool? Yeah. I'm just going to carry on going until Tom yells at me. Let's check messages. How's everyone doing? That's fine. Cool. Thanks, Tom. Tom says, I mean what? What, Tom? You could just ignore me forever and we're streaming until 2049. Whoa! Alright. Maybe I will wrap it up, sassy pants. No, one more example, because this whole point was just to rattle off a whole load of examples and like talk about some very general sort of principles. My favourite sound designers in Dreams are totally game designers as well. You know, people who you can tell when people build their mechanics like around the concept of adding sound at the point they've made a mechanic, if that makes sense. You know, big love to everyone who does that. Like I've seen like some stuff from, for example, Mandelbow. I know he does that a lot. His latest one, like, you can just tell, you can see the thought process of like adding in audio as you add features. And I think especially like Super Good Job Human, I can't imagine that Bergevin like made that game like completely in silence and then did an audio pass. I think there's some really nice sort of like in sync design philosophies in that game, but like, you know, tons of other stuff as well. And while I'm shouting out, Bivson, dude, I don't know if you're in the chat, but like watched your video Snowball this morning. Oh my goodness, that was so flipping cool. Well done. I missed the premiere, but like I watched it this morning in bed, and it was so lovely. It was like really, really, really well done. I'm sure everyone has gone to see it, but if you have not, then check out Snowball by Bivson. It's lovely. Featuring Bo and Green Guy, my favourite Dreamverse team. Anyway, back to this. Before we wrap up, I was working on something that might end up in Thunderhead, another game working on. I thought like maybe the second pilot has crashed and then you're on foot for a bit. And that's like basically a cheap way of me like making more games and Dreams and not getting bored. So this is a template that I will release if people are interested in it for a shooter man or girl, I don't know. It is basically just a character that wanders around and shoots. That's it so far. And it has a lock-on mechanic. And this might be more logic than sound design, but I'll quickly rattle through how you do a lock-on mechanic because that's useful. And I actually cribbed this entirely from John, who helped me when I was working on the Clone Wars. Yep, it's a shooter. It runs. He doesn't aim up and down. It just shoots. And that's where we're at. And I figured what we could do is look at maybe some sound design of the weapon, because that's often an interesting sound design challenge. There isn't like an easy way to like just dump in an automatic weapon sound from the library, so you have to make that yourself. And there's some thought process there that we can talk about. All right, this character has got like an idle pose, or 3 idle poses when they're not doing anything. But the core pose is aiming down his weapon, because that really helps when you're building this sort of thing. One thing I found actually was that it was really helpful to grab everything by the pelvis and move it slightly off center, because if I had not done that, you would have the character like this. The gun would be off center, and that would make all the aiming very, very difficult. So I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know that you could actually move the whole puppet on the base plate. So that was a bit of a revelation when it came to making this. Anyway. Inside the logic, this is how it works. We have got, again, a microchip per concept. And let's have a look how it works. We've got lock on aim here. Lock on aim is triggered by, I think, L2. Again, our friend the remapper or the signal manipulator. This is just there because L2 is a trigger. You want any press, no matter how sensitive or not, of L2 to trigger the aim. So we are remapping that signal, boosting it, if you will. So that is what happens when you hit the trigger. What happens next? Right, for lock on, there is this trigger zone that is like just outside of the character like this, looking ahead, and it's looking for a tag called target. Now our targets, funnily enough, have a tag called target, but that isn't the thing that you will lock onto. When the target tag is found by the trigger zone, it in turn then powers this other tag called targeted. Now the reason that is like that, well, ultimately we're going to be using a targeter, a lookout rotator, right? That's going to be what is turning it, and that's going to be looking at this tag targeted. If that was looking at the tag target, then you would spin towards the closest target, not the one that you're looking at. So the logic is, thing is in front of me, I have pressed L2, that tag becomes, hey, I'm on, and then that turns another tag on, which the lookout goes, look at that, and that's how auto lookout works. Oh, you're stuck on this the other day. Oh, I'm glad that this might help. I'll publish this if anyone wants to look at it. But yeah, essentially there's a couple of tags. Another thing that happens is like when you do lock on, you actually slow down the turning speed, which is just tweaking, keyframing some tweaks there. So let's just have a look. Yeah, it has indeed locked on, and the target that is getting activated, that tag is what is powering the little brackets that tell you it's being locked on. All right, well, enough about logic. Let's look at the gun, how that works. I should say very quickly, as I'm in a rambling mood, I'm never one to make like war games, so I want to keep this in the sort of like fantasy, escapism, sci-fi realm. Shoot monsters, not people. People don't deserve to get shot. I mean, you do what you want, but that's just me. So we have inside the firing mechanics, which is just have you pressed fire, essentially. Have you pressed fire and are you on the ground? That's the condition that triggers firing. And firing isn't just an emitter in this case. Firing is a timeline. When you fire, I just play a timeline, and inside the timeline is a loop of this. That's the machine gun. And the reason I wanted to show this was because most designers, I think, would work in such a way that they would be like, okay, trigger, I'm on ground, then go straight to the emitter. And then an audio designer might come in, or they might do the audio, and they might be like, yeah, now they put the sound when the thing has been emitted. But you can actually reorder those steps. If you start the sound playing, you can use the sound outputs to then fire the gun. And there's a really interesting reason why you might want to do that, was because you can actually build up the sound of the gun as you go, and you might want to tweak, say, the playback speed, which is the rate of fire. So in this case, we've got 196 BPM, but if I make it a bit slower, you'll notice that the gun has become slower. And I haven't got to worry about like timers re-triggering an emitter or anything like that. It's just a timeline, and the tempo of the timeline is your gun. But where does that go next? So that sound, which is the shot, has an output of no on, and then that goes down here. This is like what happens when a shot is fired. Well, first of all, you get a bit of recoil. Let's have a look at the recoil. This is like, I don't know if anyone else is like this, but like I always design things and like the least important first. Like the sound is arguably the least important thing for the gameplay, but like And same with like recoil. You can come and add that after all the actual shooting and bullet mechanics work. But like, you know, I just want to get the impression of shooting first, and then I'll worry about like actually firing bullets. So the recoil is just that, boop boop boop, and then that muzzle flash becomes visible. Right, and then this starts going somewhere else. What that's actually doing, a bunch of things. We are turning on this tracer fire. This thing just gets lit up, so you get this long stroke, and you can see that goes all the way outside of the level. And that is dealt with. So you'll notice that what we've got here is, sorry, I'm rambling. The tracer, although that should actually exist past this wall, we can make that stop very easily at the wall. I'll get to the sound design at some point, folks. Right now I'm just going on about this nonsense. I hope that's okay. Da, da, da. Static pose, where is it? Yes, here's the bullet impact. So we have a raycast, or rather a laser scope. The laser scope is exactly the same length as this stroke. It goes all the way up here, and no, that's the wrong one. I beg your pardon. That's how I'm deciding where to spawn the bullet that's landing. This one is the length of a tracer, and this should match up exactly to the length of that stroke. Now what we're doing here is getting a little bit more advanced, is that can be inversely mapped directly to the length of that stroke. And again, all credit to John B and his genius on this, because this is how I figured this out. I was trying to make a red dot sight, and the red dot would stop at the wall and not go through it. So here we've got like the length of this, or the end point of this stroke. And this is just one of those ways that Dreams sometimes just magically makes things work together, is like the length of that raycast, when it hits something, that is how long you want the stroke to be. Simple when you think of it like that. I, you know, never would have thought of it myself, but like I said, I'm now passing on John Beach knowledge. Sorry, John. So that's how the tracer works, and then the weapon hit position is a similar concept, except that position of the raycast, or rather the laser scope, is being fed into the position of an emitter. And then that circle is being spawned here, because that's where it is. That's the position of that raycast. Now you might be like, why didn't you just make the thing emit like a bullet and then have that bullet explode? You totally can, that's totally valid. I felt that that looks too slow. It's good for laser beams, but actually for this, I really wanted like an almost instant effect. A couple of things I can do to make that better, actually, whilst I'm here. Boop, boop. Hope you don't mind me going into this. Right, this actually doesn't really want to like be visible. We want to use this this sphere as a way of spawning other effects. So up here I think I've got a spark, which is again just a stroke, and if this imaginary wall collides with a label of the scenery, so does this thing get shot at a wall, then it also produces some debris, which again is another animated stroke. I'm just spilling my entire guts here, and then this thing actually isn't relevant. We can just get rid of it entirely. We don't need to see it. So now when you shoot, you get sparks and rubble. Pew, pew, pew. So I just saw my name flash up. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, you're just telling people my PSN. Yep, Ed209B. I'll publish this and you can share it around. Right, that's how this works. I wanted to get that out of the way, so you'll not be like, what? You probably still are like, what? But anyway, now let's make this this sound like it's a real weapon. And the groundwork's been done because I've already got this timeline, which is here. Boop. Right, how do I make an automatic weapon in Dreams when there clearly aren't any automatic weapon sounds? There's like pistols, there's something like a shotgun, there's like a blow dart, but there's nothing like a machine gun. So there's a reason I used the black box classic kit, in that it's got a very nice kick. Pop. And now, you know, the weapon sounds like this. Although that's not the entire sound, like a kick drum is often like what we'll all use as sound designers as like just because it's so pure in terms of like it just moves your speaker like that. It's a really good way of adding punch to a sound, so that'll be like the basis of this sound. Sounds like Gabba. Okay, now I'm just going to clone this whole instrument and we can start adding some interest. Bum, 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 ba-dum. Okay, so thinking about like what we're building, it's some sort of automatic weapon. It's going to have moving parts. So moving parts are going to sound clicky. We're going to look for machines, buttons and switches. You know what? That. Now that's not going to work straight away. Just putting a light switch on top of this is going to sound almost inaudible. So this is when we start going into sort of like edit, and we're going to start trimming these sounds. Well, first of all, let's not make it 3D. It's not a very interesting sound, I have to say. I think we need something with a bit more rattle. Maybe that. Yeah, Rattly Bolt. Again, doesn't want to be 3D. For now, anyway. Okay. And I'm just making sure that I'm not playing these samples with a bit of dead air. I'm just like making it nice and tight. Okay, now this gun sounds like this. Maybe I can cut into the sound a little bit with the start time offset. Yeah, it's doing its thing, I guess. There's a little bit of rattle. I guess like the cheaty way, but we need a blast. We need there to be like some crack of like the gun firing. So let's just go to combat. Yeah, there's some sounds that sound like guns. Maybe we'll just use this. And again, I know that this has got, because it's a pistol sound, it's got this useless stuff here. So let's start trimming. And, you know, this is often the point when you put a sound in the game, it doesn't work right away, and that's because it was probably designed for a different purpose. So you do often need to do a little bit of WAV trimming to make sure that in this case the sound starts exactly when we want it to. Right, that's sounding better. I think I can maybe pitch it up a little bit. Maybe we'll have some pitch variation. So each time it fires we get that. Right, sounding a bit better. But it's totally dry, so this revolver I think needs to come through reverb C a little. That's way too much. If you play it entirely reverberated, you get this. You know, I actually kind of like that. That's kind of fun, but I think it's too much, so I'm going to here. Reverb takes things into the next level, really. It's a really helpful way of making a sound feel like it's in a space. Yeah, we're getting there. I think now I probably want there to be a... You know, if you got a weapon and you want it to feel powerful, you want it to feel like it's rang out across the level. But you don't need to do that for every shot, otherwise you're going to keep... If you've got like a sound that's like a big reverb tail, Playing that every time the gun shoots is going to start stacking up, and you're going to get too many washy tails. So we only want one of them, really, because this is an exercise in finding a real life recording that we can map to a fictional, like, simulation. It doesn't have to be realistic. Don't be realistic with your sound design if you so wish. So I think I want like a sort of explosion tail, like a sort of big wash. I know I'm kind of going over on time. I'm gonna wrap this up soon. Yeah, something like that. Oh, yes, that's exactly what we want. Cracking blast. Cracking blast. Now you can, obviously, if that were to play, it's not entirely right at all, is it? We want to find a bit of that sound that makes sense. So in this case, maybe I'll just do 3 of them. Save some time. Actually, I think they're all roughly the same length. So what I could do is cut into it using this offset here. Nice recording of a boom reverberating around a space. Hopefully no one was hurt. They weren't, it's fine, don't worry. Okay, but again, this is now starting bang on that start point. It's being chopped into the sound. So if I use this to shape a slight fade in, maybe pitch it down a little so it lasts a bit longer, and then send it to the reverb, we've got ourselves a nice cracking blast. And remember, we're saying we don't want this to play on every gunshot, we just want this to play when you have stopped shooting. So I think we can do that with our friend. Anyone want to guess? The signal manipulator. Right, so we take the condition from having fired, Bob, and plug it into that. And what we're looking for in the signal manipulator is I have stopped playing. So we say pulse at off. That means like I've fired and then I stop firing, and then that should just play the tail, right? With me? No. Yes, yes, we understand. Okay. Yeah. Brutal. So yeah, we don't need to play the tail on every gunshot. The only thing to do there, I think, is just mix it. Maybe it could be. There you go. I did cheat by adding in already a weapon sound, but that's what they're there for. You can add tons and tons of different elements in here. Maybe you want to make it sound a bit sci-fi, so you add in one of these little blasters. Pew! That one. Love that. So then you can sort of like mix things around this new idea that the revolver isn't so important. The rattly bolt, still cool. Pew blaster. Yeah, boy. And then you've got yourself a bit more of a laser blaster. Yeah? Maybe? I don't know. I don't think that needs to go through the reverb because it's such a pure... Ooh! That sounds nice. Just get rid of the pistol entirely. Cool. Well, I'm going to leave it there and publish this so people can play around with sounds to their heart's content. Sorry, I've gone on an absolute rant today. Have to admit I was super nervous after like yesterday's utter failure, so just belched all that guff at you. I'm gonna check the chat, see what people are saying, if people are still here. Hello. Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask before I'll wrap up and have something to eat. Let's have a look. Excellent recovery. Yeah, good recovery. Meow gun. Oh man, a meow gun would be amazing. Hey Keld, are you streaming tonight? Are you doing the post MM stream, or did you do that yesterday? Dum bum bum ba dum. A lot of people asking if templates remixable. Hopefully we get more audio streams in the future. Yeah, Andy, I'd love to do that, and I would also, well, as a team, we need to do that because Ollie and Lisa are amazing at this stuff, and there are people in the audio department we don't hear enough from. So you know, to get more of that them streaming on Tuesdays would be great. Did you miss any kitties? There was actually a kitten, Keld, and we threw it on spikes. Sorry about that. Monthly Ed stream. You don't need that much Ed in your life. Yeah, I think you can't go at 21 minutes past. You need to round it up to 30s. Yeah, if you've got stuff you want me to do for 10 minutes, then no. Hello. Raid Woodsense. Yes, if there's someone else streaming, then let's go do that. Oh, Tap. Is there much difference between having a shorter clip looped versus a longer clip with lots of notes? Do you mean in the context of this weapon, or in general, or in the context of this? There really is no reason to like need it to be this long. And what I'm doing actually is restarting the timeline each time you pull the trigger as well. So I think I just cloned a bunch of stuff and let it do its thing. I think I was like encountering some issues where the loop point can occasionally glitch out a little. So like the longer you make it, the less likely that's going to happen. The loop point of the timeline, I think if a bunch of stuff is happening at the time it loops, then it might just skip a tiny bit, in which case you'll notice the gun be a little bit like for half a frame or something. But for performance, no, I did mention this yesterday, but probably didn't hear it because like the stream was garbage. This, for example, is less efficient than this. So when you can, if you are like saving all of them things, as in like your thermometer things, yeah, if you're doing that, then that is cheaper. But again, that is a loop point, and I wanted to avoid any potential mishaps of. Usually it's absolutely fine. Don't encounter many issues here, but sometimes a loop point can provide, because sometimes a little bit of an error. So yeah, like your notes aren't expensive, but you know, like I said, that is more efficient than that. How would you make a sound echo? Most people, I think when you say echo, you probably mean reverb, and that would be how I would do that. You should use one of the 4 reverbs. However, there is some tweaks within reverb that can get you a nice echo effect. So let's grab a sound such as, seeing as we're in combat land, let's grab an explosion sound. Right, Master Blaster. I'm going to make this into a short crack. Let's say we want that to echo. Let's send it to Reverb D, because I know Reverb D isn't being used, and then I'm going to grab a Reverb D gadget from our little palette. If I tweak Reverb D, I've got a bunch of settings that I can use to control the sound of just that reverb, and the one you want here is going to be reverb pre-delay. So if I send, oops. The longer I make that pre-delay, the larger the gap between the initial sound and then the echoed version of it. That's how I'd add a very simple echo. You can also do echo with the delay line in chorus and delay. That's like a more of a musical effect. You can visualize these as like echo taps. Like that. Ollie's like, try different IRs. Yeah, you're right, because, you know, that's a heck of an echo. Put that pre-delay up, and that's quite nice. Yeah, there you go, Kel. You've learned something. Hooray! Definitely grab reverb gadgets and play with these. Like, there's so many cool things. You can even drop in your own custom IRs on these things. So if you know what an IR is, an impulse response, it's a recording of a short clap or balloon popping in a space. And you can imagine a balloon popping inside a big auditorium is going to sound. So that recording can then be dumped into an impulse response reverb. For example, if I was to take this, you can actually dump it on top of this sample here. And then we say, look, well, custom, that's my now is a reverb. That sample becomes the impulse response. And you're then shaping the reverb with the sound of that sample. It requires a bit of playing around with to find the results that you want, but ultimately it's just another toy for you to muck around with and see if you can get some interesting sounds. Cool. Advanced mode, bruh. Yes, Bobby Love. Are the sounds in Dreams free to use and royalty free? As in if I'm making a song, can I publish it outside of the game? You can apply for a. There's something going on. Actually, ask. Yeah, so that's a question that I know how to answer, but I've forgotten the words. There is a scheme at the moment that you can write to and ask to participate in, which is if you have made music, you can ask for the right to monetize that outside of Dreams. But you do have to get in contact with directly for that. Yeah, cool. I think I've taken up enough of all of your lovely time, and I will say goodbye and see you again soon. Don't answer if you don't remember the words. Bobby Love, yes, you are absolutely right. Just write to with your question. I'm not the I'm not the keeper of those facts. Sorry. Yeah, cool. Thanks everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and see you again soon. Bye.